It's kind of a hot topic these days, but and I guess that goes for every industry, but I'm going to focus on design and engineering and the kind of disruption of the game as we know it today. And I don't believe we should be scared. I believe we should kind of run towards it, understand it and embrace it. The existence of AI in our world does not mean we're cooked, I promise. These tools are quick, and you can now explore 10 to 20 directions in the time that it used to take for one wireframe. Use that to take bigger creative risks, or even those kind of more left field examples that you get in your head when you get given a task. Kind of use AI tools to kind of dig into those. We all have bosses, we all have people asking unreasonable tasks in a short amount of time. So use these tools to help make your workflow more efficient. Hello everyone, my name is Robbie and welcome to my talk. The last time I was actually here was about 4 months ago, and I was sat just where you're sat actually with my friends, and now I'm up here giving my first ever talk, so I'm kind of excited. A little bit nervous, but I'm excited. Designers aren't cooked, I promise. Shout out to Dima for setting this up and giving me the airtime. No one else has been brave enough to do it so far, so thank you very much. So today I'm going to be speaking about AI in design and I guess the kind of fate that it may hold for us. It kind of, if you read anything online, it sort of seems like every day our obituaries are being written as designers. But before we get into it, I'll just introduce myself because I don't see many familiar faces in the crowd. But my name is Robbie Matthew Simpson. I've been a product designer for about 9 years, almost a decade, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. Obviously, job titles changed, UI designer, web designer, but I guess product designer is the most relevant as of today. I graduated in 2018 from the School of Art up on Royal Avenue, following an honours degree in interaction design. Right now, I'm working for a US-based sports tech firm, Teamworks. We kind of build apps for some of the most, some of the most prolific sports teams in the world: Premier League, NFL, NHL. Apps for organising trips, budgets and nutrition. We kind of do all that stuff. I'm leading design on Teamworks Wallet, as you can see there, which is kind of our solution for student athletes to get paid their kind of rev share allowance, per diem, and kind of image likeness fees and so on. But that's enough about me. Let's get into it. AI, the story so far. It's kind of a hot topic these days, but and I guess that goes for every industry, but I'm going to focus on design and engineering and the kind of disruption of the game as we know it today. And I don't believe we should be scared. I believe we should kind of run towards it, understand it and embrace it. The existence of AI in our world does not mean we're cooked, I promise. Is anyone on Twitter? Twitter? Please? Yeah, a few hands. I love Twitter. And I love stuff like this, which is kind of, my talk is kind of based loosely on like rebuttals to this sort of thing. I love seeing stuff like, it's so over for designers. Designers are absolutely cooked, hence the title. Social media is kind of inundated with stuff like this, particularly after, the Google Stitches of the world, Figma, Make, and all sorts. When they release a big update, we get inundated with stuff like this. From creatives and peers alike. You can actually subscribe to this guy, which I think is wild, but here, that's not for me to judge. I found this on Tech Radar. It's from an article just over 2 years ago. Graphic designers could lose their jobs before 2030, which is kind of wild. And like, I'm gonna say it now, like AI in its current state does have capabilities to do some fairly basic design tasks. Particularly rough designs or concept level work. But my argument today is that I believe we can coexist. The game has changed, so should we. When I say the game has changed, I sort of mean that kind of workflow of old where, you speak with clients, you maybe do wireframes and a V1, and then you go back to client for feedback, and you then do a V2, and then website app goes live. Designers aren't cooked. We are being manipulated by stuff like this. So, embracing AI, how do we do it? I believe there are kind of ways we can look at these tools and utilize them day to day to make our lives slightly easier and definitely more efficient. And it kind of lets us, if we let AI do its part, it lets us do ours in storytelling and high-level polish. So let's get into it. You're not being replaced, you've been upgraded. Congrats. AI is pretty good these days at doing repetitive execution, concept level work, rough variants, basic layouts. So I kind of feel like we as UI and product designers have kind of been upgraded to this like almost like a design visionaire. We have the ability now to direct the vision, the flair, and the final call. I kind of think we should look at these AI agents as like if you've just been gifted like a robotic junior designer. And they can do stuff pretty quickly, so I think we should look at them as our assistants on a day-to-day life. Double down on what AI can't replicate. So what's the difference between us? They are AI and we are human. Stitch, Claude, Lovable, they can all kind of generate static designs and beyond in minutes, seconds. But what AI still can't do, and is probably still ways away from, is doing work that feels right, doesn't have human empathy, and that's what separates us. UX techniques that we learnt a decade ago at schools and colleges, they are still of value, and I would argue that they're probably more valuable than ever before. And I think that's the difference between these kind of lifeless pieces of work that you see from AI versus ones that actually solve problems and solutions that enhance user experience. So focus on that user empathy, ethical decisions, accessibility, and trying to design for business impact. Focus on the human elements. We're humans after all. This is one of my favorite ones. AI can help to spark creativity. I assume everyone in the room here is some kind of creative, and you'll know what I'm talking about when I say sometimes you're just not really feeling it, the creative juices aren't flowing, and you don't have that flair with you today. And sometimes that's okay because you can kind of rely on instinct depending on your task that you've been given. But sometimes it's important to kind of step away from the screen or the paper. But now I think we've kind of unlocked this new avenue where these AI tools can kind of start formulating rough ideas and concepts and start kind of planting the seeds for a vision that you might not know even existed in the first place. You know, they're AI tools, but if you strip away that term AI, they are tools, so we should utilize them to fix problems. I also like using these agents for generating inspiration before I handle a task for my work. Vibe design. Does anybody remember, like, this made me show my age a little bit, when we used to do like portfolios and CVs, and we put like skill charts on like our CVs. Does anyone remember these? Getting a few head nods. You'd have like Sketch or Photoshop and you'd give it like 4 to 5 stars. If we were doing those charts today, not that they were ever really a good way to showcase your skills, but vibe design / vibe coding would be on there. And I would imagine that employers would be more interested in looking at designers who have dipped their toe into these tools and learned how to prompt well versus ones that have kind of ignored it or been too scared to. For any young folks sending CVs, don't do these. Don't do these skill charts. It was a bad idea back in my day, certainly not a good idea now. Speed and experimentation. These tools can certainly help with that. When I was writing this slide, this one was a little bit tricky because I put it as own the 80%. If AI gives you 20, own the 80. And the numbers are kind of up in the air. They're a bit hypothetical, but stay with me. If AI does give you 20%, that 80% we really need to own because AI does that 20% fairly quickly and it's not perfect, but we need to own the remainder. Creativity, flair, human soul, good UX, the final areas where we can really put our stamp on the creative work. I sort of did a rough visual to help kind of understand what this looks like, at least in my head. So if AI generated work is kind of rough concepts and ideation, the designer zone, which is still the majority, is kind of UX techniques, design systems, grids, high fidelity design work. And also, I think we sort of forget as designers, we are essentially storytellers. influencing the product's vision and the roadmap is kind of what we do, and AI is miles away from doing anything like that, at least today. Non-designers are already embracing these tools. This is true, and I'll speak to my own experience here. Working at Teamworks, it was kind of jarring the first time it happened, but typically the way we work is I'll get a Linear or Jira ticket of a design feature that's been requested, and what I've noticed in more recent months is it's now accompanied with a Figma Make link. And as I said, it was jarring at first, and I was a little bit like, oh, you don't really need me. If you can work out how to do Figma Make, then what am I here for? But actually, it's you can use that Figma Make as a rough basis for what will become your UI work, or you can look at it and go, that's pretty much AI slop. So I'm going to stay away from that. I know what not to do, and I can go the opposite direction. Again, I would just say rely on what got you here to this point, whether it's UX theory, the designer eye that is, I believe, unteachable, but most importantly, creativity. And also with non-technical folks starting to dip their toe into these tools, I think it's important for us to ask the question to ourselves, how do we make ourselves stand out even more? How do we make ourselves even more helpful? Whether it's using these tools to push for collaboration or show the end goal, show the vision of what the product could be and help shape it to become that. So my challenge for you all, not right now, but this coming week, inject a little bit of AI into your workflow, whether it's starting the creative process, like I said, generating inspiration, or maybe it's using AI to build out a prototype of your own static designs, or iterate on existing work and push it a little bit further. I found the second point there to be one of AI's strengths at the moment, particularly if you're using a tool like Lovable. It can take static work and turn it into kind of an interactive prototype pretty quickly. And I believe that is a good way to kind of get buy-in from non-designer folk for your vision for the product. I believe this. Creativity is magic and it cannot be generated. We kind of used to ask the question back in my university days where should designers code, and it was kind of polarizing and a little bit piss-takey, if I can say. It was kind of controversial, and I kind of believe that the AI question of today is sort of mirroring that. It kind of creates uncertainty and it kind of gets us questioning ourselves. But what we need to remember is designers can learn, we can adapt, and we can overcome these and become better for it. I kind of look at these AI tools that they sort of do a separate job, kind of going back to that 20 versus 80%. That rough starting point for design, they kind of take care of that. And it's still fairly rough, but we have problems to solve. We're kind of shaping the vision of products and using context to influence decisions like that. High fidelity design is still on us. State of Designer, Figma's report. If anyone hasn't taken a look at this, I'm going to fire it into the WhatsApp channel afterwards because it's definitely worth a read. They asked a lot of designers about AI tools and how it's kind of affecting their day-to-day workflow. And 91% said that AI tools improve their designs. So designers are starting to see the benefits. And here's some other stats from the same report. I really like the tools I use to help create better designs. 55% agreed, 36% strongly agreed. And I know from my own experience, I like to use these tools, as I said, for putting together prototypes. And the reason I like to do prototypes, especially quickly, is that, showing dynamic work to non-technical types, it creates buy-in quicker. They believe the product because it looks more real versus showing them static designs. This is just more proof about AI, about designers buying into AI. But I really like the second half of this. Precise designer's vision is what makes the difference. That was from a Brazilian designer who was working in financial services from the Figma report. We need to show our value to the team. Designers can help build these tools, these AI prototypes, and make collaboration faster and easier. Easier handoff, which helps design culture within our teams. But at the end of the day, that designer's vision is what really makes the difference when it comes to AI. So again, I'll send this link into the chat afterwards, and I'd strongly encourage you guys to give it a read. This is when I start to get nerdy. Does anybody know what Build Wars is? Build Wars? It's not Robot Wars? No? There's an online podcast I watch. I think his name is Tommy Gioco, and he leads this kind of show where he pits designers against each other. And they'll get given a brief, and it's basically your design versus my design. But there was this kind of one episode last year, I think it was about last year, that sort of went viral. I convinced my wife to stay up on a Friday night to watch it with me. That's how nerdy I am. But it was basically Brett from Design Joy, who's kind of like a polarizing figure online anyway. And he was against Henrik, who I believe heads marketing of Lovable. So non-creative using Lovable, creative using Figma and Webflow. They got given the challenge of 45 minutes, one landing page. Again, designer using Webflow, non-designer using Lovable. And they had some criteria to hit. They had some copy to put in, but it was basically a landing page for this fictional AI company. And they had some interactive elements they had to add if time allowed. So this is Brett's version in Webflow. And he used, because they showed both screens, and he was kind of jumping in and out of Figma and Webflow to create kind of some of these elements here. But you can kind of see clean typography, good use of negative space, and nice imagery. And this is the Lovable version. Now, albeit this was made by someone who doesn't really do any design work, and he kind of stated this afterwards, he kind of had problems with some of the prompting, like it's kind of all cut off here and stuff. But he didn't really cover as much ground, but what he had was very interactive, and it looks kind of cool. But what did we take away from this? So the people watching this, because this was like live streamed, and the people watching voted in favor of the designer's Webflow version, just because it had that nicer layout, it was a bit cleaner and a bit more exciting, and he had covered more ground. And bearing in mind, this is about a year and a half ago, it was the first time we had kind of seen Lovable in a live demo situation. And what I sort of took from it myself was, imagine you had Brett using the Lovable platform, just how impressive that could be. It was quick. In 45 minutes, a non-designer put this together. Imagine a creative type doing the same. So there's your takeaways from my talk. This is just another skill to learn as a designer in today's age. Use it to your advantage. And if there's anything you take from today's talk, let it be this. AI won't replace designers, but designers who adopt AI now will replace those who don't. Thank you very much. Previous slide? This one?
Yeah,
This one?